Hi everyone. Hope everybody's having a good evening. You know, a lot of people are new to the channel and they don't know that one of the things that I have a passion for is refurbishing and repairing old vintage stereos, AM, FM stereos, particularly the period from pre-stereos in the late 1950s where before FM, when they thought, wouldn't it be a good idea if we just broadcast an AM signal and then FM signal, and then we would just have two separate tuners on the Pioneer receiver. You would turn one to the AM station that was broadcasting the signal, and you would turn one to the FM station that was broadcasting the signal. And you would have a stereo. You'd have two separate broadcasts coming to you that would be integrated into one receiver. And it was really a pre-stereo. It was called aural stereo. Of course, the problem is that FM carried a very short distance, but it was a very clean signal, right? It was great. AM carried much further, but it was a very crackly, and it wasn't as clean a signal as you would get on FM. But things evolved and they moved forward. So I have one of the early aural, like 1959 Pioneers, that has the two tuner windows in it, and you're supposed to change the knobs. You know, it's kind of crazy, but it's nice. And I go all the way up through all the way up to about 1988 with stereo repairs. And I had 100 in my garage, and over the period of the last 5 months, I've managed to work down until I've got 8 left. And I'm down to the final 8 that you'd have to pry them out of my hands. I had to make space in the garage. You know, the boss, my best friend Janet's hubby, the master electrician and stuff, he hated to see the garage full of what he called old radios. You know, he has no sense of history or the march through stereos over time like you and I do. And every once in a while I like to do a kitchen table doctor where I take an old stereo and I try to bring it back to life. If you look up on top of the refrigerator up here, you can see some of the ones, the Sherwood, and I have the Technics and the Sansui, and I have a big Yamaha up on top. In the other rooms, I got my Pioneers, I got my Kenwoods, and you know, I got all kinds of stuff all over the house. But I'm finally down to 8 final receivers that I really, really love. And one of the coolest ones I want to talk about tonight was produced by the Luxman Corporation of Japan for export in the early 1980s, and it was called the Luxman made a RX-101. And they made a really fancy RX-103. And this is before Luxman became part of Alpine Corporation. And you know Alpine for car stereos and great sound. Well, the Luxman stereo receivers that came out of Japan for export in the early 1980s were the absolute Rolls Royce of pre-digital stereos. Okay, just the era where the analog stereos, where you turn the knob to tune in stations and things, was giving way to total computer control, where you'd lock in signals, you know, with crystals and things like that. So it was like a total quantum jump in stereo receivers. And of course, it took all of the romance out of stereo receivers. It just took the guts out of them, and pretty soon they just developed into lightweight, junky pieces of plastic. Sure, you could get 150 watts per channel, but the stereos had no balls to them. You know, they had no glory. They had no pizzazz to them. So I went today and I have the Luxman set up here, and as usual, when I get a stereo, it's not working. It could be anything from bad fuses to we've had bad resistors to change out before. We've had capacitors have gone bad. We've had transformers. We've had short circuits on the boards. We've had to change out rectifiers. We've had to do all kinds of things. and we've luckily, knock on wood, in all of the repair projects we've done, we've only had one that we just could not give it to Lazarus and bring it back from the dead and resurrect it. So tonight I want to talk about the Luxman RX103 because it is probably the coolest stereo I possess. It would look perfect set inside of a Star Trek set or a Lost in Space with lights and choo-choos and plexiglass buttons and all kinds of stuff. So unfortunately, because it's not working, I can't show you some of the cooler features. If we can get it working, it's going to astound you how cool this unit is. The most prominent thing about the Luxman receivers, the RX101, and of course I'm going to be showing you the RX103, is they were called the Suckface, S-U-C-K-F-A-C-E, Suckface receivers. Now you're thinking to yourself, Rosie, have you been drinking tonight? No, I've not been drinking tonight. The Suckface refers to one of the features that I'm going to show you on the front of this receiver that makes it so ultra cool. It was really the first sort of kid-proof receiver, so when Dad came home, he didn't see that Junior had fiddled with all the knobs and changed all the settings, so when Dad went to put the power on, the volume had been turned to 10 and it just exploded the speakers out of the house. Right, Junior, have you been touching my stereo again? So having said that, I'm going to grab the cam now and invite you to come down with me to the table here and pardon that lousy cam work. But here we go. Now just for size comparison, I just want to show you the size differential that we're dealing with. This is a Sansui, another one of the stereo receivers I have, the Sansui 331. It's a beautiful little stereo. It has the best tuner section probably in the history of analog stereo receivers. And when I'm talking about analog, I'm talking about ones that you tune by turning the dial that way as opposed to punching buttons with computer digital controlled. 12 watts per channel. It's don't be fooled by wattage. A lot of people were buying high wattage, but it's not like you're going to come home and put it on 10, right, and blow out the neighborhood. You'd always run a stereo at moderate volume. So the Sansuis were known for clean, low distortion sound. But if you take a top-down view, I have it sitting on top of the Luxman here, and the Luxman is an absolute beast. This thing weighs 45 pounds down here, and this probably weighs about 18 pounds on top. It's just to give you an idea of the size difference between these stereos, and they're pretty much sitting one on top of the other. If anything, the Sansui's even forward a little bit. This thing is a behemoth, the Luxman. Now, if you come down to the front here, it's a little hard to see right now because when you plug it in and turn on the power, nothing happens. The unit is dead. And I'll tell you, I paid up. I usually don't pay more than $5 or $10 for stereos that need work. But these units are so rare, and this thing is in such good condition with all of the, you can see the plexiglass buttons here for FM and AM and phono and auxiliary tape, up and down tuning. I mean, this is just so modern, classic with the plexiglass buttons. And it has when it's working right, you'll be able to see the digital tuner. One of the first really digital tuners, and these things cost a fortune when this was produced in 1982. And it has your A/B speaker combinations, the power button here. You can have preset channels. That was an early feature. You paid a lot of money for that. You could also run a remote. You could push this button in, and you could have a remote control unit that you would use. And that was one of the early things. You could plug the headphones into the bottom. Now, if you look over here, you heard me mention Suckface before, and one of the coolest features of this, the Luxman, the RX103 and the RX101, was the Suckface feature. When this thing is working properly, when it's turned off and the power's off, as it is now, you see that this front here is basically flush. You see all the buttons are basically flush with the front. But when the power goes on and when it's turned on, what actually happens is this this faceplate depresses and goes back into the unit, allowing you to access the buttons and turn them. And when you're done your listening and everything, and you turn off the power, it comes back out again like that in a flush position. And it was sort of kid-proofing, so nobody could fool around with the front. So they call it the Suckface because it comes in and out, like it's being sucked in and out. And it's a really, really cool feature. When you turn the power on, you can see the face goes back, and then when you turn the power off, the face comes forward. So it's really, really a unique and highly collectible unit. What's more, this is 90 watts per channel, 90 watts, and that's pure watts. That's not, that's not bogus and trumped up watts. That's 90 watts. I mean, in a day, it doesn't sound like a lot today, but 90 watts in 1980 with really just on the verge of computer control was a huge amount of, it was a monster output for this unit. You could have a block party and hear this thing probably 3-4 blocks away booming. This thing was a tower of power. And when it's lit up, all these have blue behind these and red. This is supposed to look really beautiful. When you pick FM, it lights up behind the plexiglass there, and it's really cool, and it's ultra modern, and it is the total state of stereos. So that's just to give you a taste of what I hope to be working on next and getting that going. Like I said, I'm down to the last 8 stereos. I've got old fans and other stuff to work on out there, 1920s fans to be restored and things. But this should be quite a challenge. It'll be quite a unit. If I can get this Luxman going, this RX-103, it will be the pride of my stereo collection, and it will be in my living room as the prominent main event in my stereo collection. I hope you enjoyed this tour of the Luxman, and I wanted to take a little time to really introduce it before before you see the next uploads in the future, where we start to fiddle with it and take it apart and try to get this little baby working. Okay, thanks for being with me tonight as I explain our next kitchen table doctor repair. We're going to try to undertake the Luxman RX-103 digital synthesized AM/FM stereo amplifier and receiver. Thanks for being with me, everyone.